If I could teach the whole world one thing, it would be the power in trusting your intuition. So much gets led astray because we don't trust our inner knowing and how to access it. And that's the goal here. The Empowered Intuitive is here to bridge the gap in your spiritual knowledge, to open your mind and give you permission to decide what's best for you and the world around you. And I'm here to be real and silly and have fun while doing it. Hi, welcome back to another episode of the Empowered Intuitive podcast. I'm always like, should I say podcast or should I not say podcast? We have some upgrades. I got a new webcam. It's like a different size, but it is like higher definition, so you'll be able to see all the pimples on my face. So what are we talking about today? Let's get into it. We are going to talk about how to grow and trust your intuition. So that's really exciting. A topic that I am vastly versed in. I obviously am a professional psychic medium and Akashic Records channeler. So I'm New York a little bit. And I teach people one-on-one intuitive development. So I have experience not only learning for myself, but being able to translate what I know, what I connect to, what I learn, what my guides share with me, because this is like teaching people intuition, how to trust yourself and how to love your body, because those go hand in hand, surprise, is part of my mission. So I'm really good at breaking down concepts that are really intense for people. And when I teach others, I don't just teach whatever I know or whatever I think is best or whatever worked for me. I teach it in a way where it's like, what are you starting from? And where are you and what do you need? And let's help you understand that. So that's kind of the goal for today, is a little bit of like intuition 101. But also like a lot of like common missteps and mistakes and misconceptions that I know or have seen as a professional. I'm actually making a note about that. Common mistakes or misconceptions. So we're gonna get into all of that stuff. First, whenever I'm teaching someone about intuition, I always like to have context. I'm neurodivergent. Context is very important for neurodivergent people. And it also helps us understand, like, what are we working with? Why are we working with it? What are the opportunities or challenges that might arise, right? Because a common fear with intuition is what will happen when I connect to my intuition? Like, will there be a spirit or a demon or something that I'm scared of that I don't want to interact with? And that is a common control tactic that a lot of religious organizations kind of create, so that like you're afraid to even connect to your intuition. Last week's episode, we talked a lot about like these societal pieces and how everything is kind of connected, and how control and fear and removing us from our power and our intuition is what the main actual goal is for a lot of powers, whether it's religion, whether it's colonization, whether it's government, etc. That's kind of what we talked about a lot yesterday, was like seeing how all of these things are connected. So we'll have little pieces of that today. But I highly recommend listening to that one, because then we can see, literally there was a post today that I shared on social media about the fact that like, what is the goal with what's going on in the world right now in America? They're trying to put us in a place of fear so we disconnect from our power. They were talking about in Nazi Germany in the 1700s and 1800s, there was some scientists that like looked at like different trends and patterns and things from that time period and how they got people to kind of like buy into the Nazi party. And the biggest thing was, it wasn't their ideology or like money or different things like that. It was people who resisted, they had a strong sense of self, of authenticity. They were seated in their power. They were connected to their intuition. So when they were brought these types of ideologies or problems or things, they were able to say like, no, I don't believe in that. That's not what I'm for. That's not who I am. That's not me. But the people who fell for it or bought into it or partook in it, they didn't have that trust in the self. And that's what a lot of our modern societal structures aim to do, to disconnect you from yourself, from your body, from your internal power, which is your intuition. I'm a firm believer that our power, our intention, our decision, our intuition, they're all the same thing, right? Our intuition is sort of like the gateway to our power. It's like how it expresses through us, how it communicates through us, how we connect to it. It's all in our body, and trusting of the self, trusting of who you are on the inside and what you feel on the inside, right? I keep adjusting in my seat. So, wouldn't that be advantageous for people to disconnect you from the knowledge that you can make your own decisions, and you know how to make those decisions with your intuition, or you know what is best for you, what is right for you, and you just follow suit, as opposed to what they want is like listening to others, following the rule of others, looking outside of yourself for answers, not feeling like you can trust yourself, not feeling like you know who you are. You don't even have enough time. It's capitalism. Who has time? Like that's the biggest gripe that I have, that a lot of people miss, is like with capitalism, we're so distracted with money, with rent, with like products, with material items, with experiences, that people are less likely and less willing to spend money on their own healing, their connection to their body, their self-development, their self-care. They've even, co-opted self-care as like buying a face mask. That's not what real self-care is, right? They've co-opted spirituality as buying a retreat, right? Like these different things. I mean, I'm still going to host retreats because I think that they're amazing and powerful. Just want to put that caveat there. I just started trying to give examples of like ways that we're commodifying an experience, a practice, an internal piece, and still turning it like outward in capitalism. So if you're struggling to grow or trust or learn or understand how your intuition works for you, how it works in general, it is by design. I just want to say that. That's why I like to have a little bit of context in this way. It's by design. They want you to feel powerless. They want you to feel afraid to make decisions. They want you to feel afraid to go against the grain, to stand up and believe for what you feel on the inside. They want you to be preoccupied and concerned with all these other pieces, so much so that you don't realize like, oh my God, all the answers are here within me. All I need to do is connect with myself, heal, listen to myself, trust myself, and my life will be amazing, right? So much of us get like buyer's remorse or regret or different things like that. Why? Because we're not listening to our intuition. We're just doing whatever we think is important, whatever we're told, yada, yada. And then boom, here we are. We now have spent all this money, and why? So there's another piece of context that I want to share with you, which is kind of like, where does intuition come from? Like, how does it work? Because I feel like that is often a big fear for people, is like, how do I know that this thing that I'm connecting to is good or bad? Which again is a fear conditioning, which we'll talk about. But I do think it is important to know, like, where does intuition come from? How do we access it? How does it work in our body? Because then it helps explain, like, why is it so important for you to connect to your body in order to know how your intuition works? Okay, so intuition, now there's lots of different theories about this, right? So these are the ones that I understand and I know. We exist on the third dimension as humans. Our physical body has access to the first dimension, second dimension, third dimension. Our spiritual body can expand outside of our physical realm, outside of our physical limitations, and connect to higher dimensions. The fourth dimension is considered like the astral plane. So this is where like souls, like past loved ones, go when they die. This is like where if you're like following Jungian theory, Carl Jung, the collective consciousness, like a lot of pieces like that can exist in that area. So most people, when they're connecting psychically, are just going to the fourth dimension, getting the information from a spirit guide, from an ancestor, from a past loved one, etc. Now, on the fifth dimension is where the Akashic Records are. So I channel the Akashic Records. Lots of other people can channel the Akashic Records. This is where we're getting into like this more like enlightened type of like the 6 and 7 is what they call like the Christ head or the Buddha consciousness, Nirvana consciousness types of things. So some people can project their consciousness up into the 6th dimension, right? Very rare, right? We've seen like those few famous people that, I don't know, allegedly have claimed to do this. Or other people claim that they've done it. So the fifth dimension, the Akashic Records, is a space that holds the history of everything ever. Every single soul has its own records room. And a lot of the time when we are connecting psychically, we are basically a middleman to a middleman. So if I'm doing a reading for someone and they're asking me a question, I'm asking their spirit guides, their higher self. Their spirit team is going to their Akashic Records, looking up the information, bringing it back through, filtered through their bias. So that's why we usually address like higher self and spirit guides and exalted ancestors, because we know their bias is going to be in line with what is meant for our highest good. I've had many clients who want to connect to like their grandma who passed on or different things like that. The advice that the grandma is going to give is going to be vastly different from the advice that your spirit guide is going to give, because it's filtered through your grandma's bias that she had in her lived experience in this lifetime that you know her as, right? Unless you're addressing your grandma's higher self. So just knowing like, okay, so information is out there. It exists in different dimensions. Now, one piece of why this is important is in order to connect to higher level information on purpose, we have to prepare our energy to be able to stretch out into a higher dimension and sense and feel and receive that information through our body so that we can experience and get the intuitive information or the answers that we're looking for. The other reason why this is important is more in the physiological way. So our intuition works through our body, not our brain, but pretty much everything that we experience is filtered through our brain, right? Our brain is the command center, the control, the CPU, right, of the computer. So what happens is intuitive information is floating around in the world. It exists, right? That's again a Jungian theory. When we dream, we all are pulling from the same collective consciousness. Why do so many people have the same fear dreams, the same man in the hat when they're in sleep paralysis, all those different things? So the idea, and if you take that to the extreme, what really Carl Jung was saying was like, everything comes from the Akashic Records. So like nothing is original. It's just all like emanating from there. So anyways, intuitive information on like a scientific level is supposed to be like photons that are floating around in the air that we all have access to and we can all interact with. The way that they explain it scientifically is that those photons of data, of information, get filtered through our pituitary gland in our brain. Our pituitary gland is essentially like a quartz crystal. And I always love to mention that cats have like a really large pituitary gland. They're kind of like walking crystals. They're bigger than ours in relation to their body, I guess. So that information comes into our pituitary gland, and then our brain chooses, what do I want to do with this information? Do I want to immediately throw it out and say that it's fake or I shouldn't listen to it? Am I like filtering it out based off of my beliefs, right? So this is where your brain is very powerful. Even though your intuition works through your body, your brain can be a block that stops you from sensing with your body. So think about like if you're looking to rent a new apartment And then all of a sudden you're like driving in the street and you see like for rent signs everywhere. And you're like, wait a minute, like I didn't see that yesterday. Like, why am I seeing all these for rent signs? They must just be popping up. No, it's because your brain is pre-primed to say, hey, guess what? We're focusing on finding a new place to rent. So now filter in your brain for all those for rent signs so that you don't miss them. It's the same way when you're like buying a car, you buy a Subaru. All of a sudden you see all these Subarus around on the road and you're like, I didn't realize there's that many Subarus before. It's because your brain was filtering it out, right? We're constantly living in a world full of external information, full of data. So our brain has to learn to filter out certain things so that we don't get so overstimulated and overwhelmed. Unless you're neurodivergent. Hi, I'm neurodivergent. Our brain struggles to filter those things out. That's why neurodivergent people can hear electricity. They get bothered by sounds in their environment, by textures. Those are all things that your brain just like tells your body to ignore. But for neurodivergent people, it's harder. So that's where like, you know, if this sweater is cute, but it's really scratchy, like you might be like, I can't wear this. It's going to derail my entire day. I cannot focus because all I feel is this texture. Or like your dog is like licking, you know, like their paw and you're trying to read something and you're like, all I can hear is the sound of my dog licking their paw and I can't focus on reading, right? So important to acknowledge. This is also a weird theory. It hasn't been proven or anything, but I've seen a lot of spiritual people talk about it and I believe in it myself, that neurodivergent people are more psychic, are more intuitive. And it's because, my belief, the brain struggles to filter all of the information that we have access to at all times. And so neurodivergent people understand or sense or acknowledge or feel or whatever it is that the information is coming through more because we can't simply like filter away for it. So this is important because even though our intuition works through our body, which I'll explain next, our brain can be a big proponent of why we're not getting the intuitive information regularly, why we're struggling to connect to it, why we shut off from it, why we distrust it, why we have fear. Those are all pieces that are tied to the brain. So in learning how to grow and connect and trust your intuition, connect to and trust your intuition, sometimes we have to address the programming that we have in our brain. And that's why a lot of people talk about meditation when it comes to intuitive abilities, because the practice of meditation is the practice of emptying your mind and connecting to your body, right? What do they say in meditation? Just focus on your breathing. If you find your mind wandering or having other thoughts, bring it back to your breath. What you're doing is teaching your brain and your body to communicate and to have a sense of control over them, right? We're telling our brain, calm down, turn off, like become battery saving mode and allow my body to be present, my feelings to be present, all these pieces that I sense inside of me to become more heightened and more aware so that I can deal with my feelings, so that I can clear out the mental clutter in my mind, so that I can, you know, all the different cool things that meditation is good for. So that is step one for a lot of people, is learning, okay, how is my brain getting in the way of my intuition? So let's talk about some of those pieces. How could our brain be getting in the way of our intuition? A lot of this is going to be based on your conditioning, right? So there are many different factors that can cause a person to be afraid of their intuition, to distrust it, to be afraid of the power, to be afraid of what they're going to connect, to not know how to connect, to struggle to connect, right? A lot of these pieces can be in the brain. So we'll cover that, then we'll move to the body and how the intuition works. So societal conditioning. This is the part that I was kind of glossing over from last week's episode, that we are brought up in a world where we are taught to distrust our intuition and to listen to authority, to listen to people outside of ourselves for the answers. to believe that people who are in positions of power or authority or who are older than us have all the answers and we should defer to them, when who knows more or best about your own life besides you, right? Like, you live it every day. You experience it in your body every day. Like, you should know. That's what our intuition helps us, with. So societal conditioning can start from school, right? In school, we're taught, if your body says, I have to go to the bathroom, I have an urge, you're taught in school, raise your hand, ask if you can go to the bathroom. A lot of the time the teacher says no, because we don't want everyone in the bathroom. So you're literally learning to tell your body, I have an urge, don't listen to it. I have an urge, ignore it. Think harder. In school, we're taught to follow rules. We're taught to memorize things. You're not taught to critically think unless you're like in a highly gifted program or you take an AP class, right? We're just taught, this is the way it is. Memorize it, learn it, understand it. Lots of kids struggle with like math and science, right? They're like, why? Why do we need to do Pythagorean theorem? Why do we need to know how to find the angle of a triangle? What is the use of that? Because I said so. Because the curriculum says so. And if you look at who created the school structure, who created the curriculum in the US, it was Rockefeller. Rockefeller designed the education system to create blue-collar workers. The rich people, the super uber rich people, created the school system in America to churn out blue-collar workers, people who would listen, who would be okay with authority, who would be able to follow orders, who would fall in line, who would be able to do a job where someone is their boss and they just do that. They were not taught to be a free thinker, you don't really get to that point until like maybe if you have a cool high school teacher or college, really, right? And then of course they made college used to be free. And then when Black people could go to college, all of a sudden we have to pay for college. So they made it harder for certain people to connect and have this higher level thinking, right? So there can be a lot of different societal conditioning on like a more political governmental level, on like structures and systems that we exist in, right? And then we can have like our upbringing, our more familial, our more personal structures and conditionings, right? Like you may have a family member that actually, we're going to talk about religion first because it'll be easier to talk about the family member one once we talk about religion, because most of it's religion. So other structures that might exist in our life, our culture and our religion. And a lot of the time those are interlinked, right? So what does religion do? Same thing, right? Same thing. Do not trust yourself. Do not listen to yourself. Listen to who? God. Listen to someone who is larger than yourself, who knows everything, who knows what's best for you, who dictates the rules for you. And that is how you live a happy life. That is how, and what do? They throw in fear. That is how you avoid going to hell. That is how you avoid your soul going through a really horrible time. Oh my God, I'm so scared. I don't want that to happen. Of course, I'm going to listen to everything that they say because they're the authority figure. They're telling me if I just listen to them, then everything will be fine. Everything will be easy, right? And now we have capitalism where I don't have time. So sure, make it easy for me. Make it simple for me. So I'm not saying that God is fake or religion is bad or whatever. I mean, there's a lot of facets of modern religion that are bad. But thinking about God in that sense is disempowering, because a lot of what spiritual people and spiritual texts talk about is that God, we are all part of God. We're all God's children, right? So that means that we all have God within us. We all have access to God within us, right? Like a lot of religions, like Judaism, on Shabbat, you don't have to go to the synagogue, to the temple to do services. You can have Shabbat at home. Do it on your own terms. Do it in your own way. I think where it gets twisted is really like the Catholic Christian colonization stuff that's where the religion becomes like really, really, really controlling. But I've even seen it with like Muslim religion and stuff, where they say like tarot is bad, tarot is evil, psychic is bad. All these pieces that are centered around intuition are demonized, and they create fear around them. So we can have like religious trauma around connecting to our intuition because we're very afraid that we might believe this thing, and then when we die, we go to hell because God is like, should have listened, shouldn't have done the tarot cards. And the other piece of the religious conditioning, and why I feel like it's more about like Christian Catholicism, which has influenced even Judaism modernly, like so many religions, has dictated so much. It's the main religion in America, that like everyone and their mom shoves down your throat, and because of colonization. It's the main religion in a lot of places, is that the way that the Bible was written, if you really look at it, if you really scrutinize it, first of all, the Bible is a fan fiction of the Torah. The Torah is like the original text. And then the Bible is like, okay, so allow me to break this down. I'm not saying the Torah and Judaism is correct and in 100%, but none of that. But allegedly, the information for the Torah was given to us by God and by stories of people who were Jewish and what they endured. The Bible, the New Testament, the part that has Jesus in it, was not written by Jesus. It was not dictated verbatim from Jesus. It was written by people who believed or followed Jesus after he died. So if you really think about that, and you really think about how different the New Testament and the Old Testament are, like there's no hell in Judaism, in the Old Testament, in Torah. There's no hell. There's different facets of God. There's different energies of God. There's even a feminine energy of God. There's no word like sin. It just gets translated when we put it into Latin and English in Christian and Catholicism to that, right? So we see the control already starting to happen. They're picking the way that they want to transliterate the words so that they can teach it in a way that benefits them. Now, the New Testament, there's so many, people who are like, but who wrote it and why? What do they benefit from writing it, right? Men wrote this, men who followed Jesus allegedly. But why is there so much around control and power and you not trusting yourself in that piece and how they teach it to you, right? Because in modern religion, it was like ancient modern, it was originally in Latin, and people were illiterate. They didn't know how to read Latin. And so they didn't come to church. What did the church do? They created stained glass. I know they didn't create stained glass. They created churches that were pretty and beautiful, and you wanted to go there, and you could look at the picture on the stained glass and understand the story of what was being read to you in a language that you didn't even understand. They knew that there was a barrier here, and people didn't resonate or connect with what they were trying to control and tell them to do. And so they adapted to create that, right? When we see with Christianity and Catholicism, they took indigenous cultures, holidays, and they mapped over them and essentially erased them, drowned out the noise by being louder and making their holiday the loudest one. And we see this even with Judaism. Passover, Easter. What? We see this with Christmas, right? It's Yule is the traditional that they take from. Then we have Christmas. Same thing with Halloween, right? It's like there's All Hallows Eve, the pagan stuff. It's a mishmash at this point. But Dia de los Muertos, right? There's lots of other ancient cultures that had these beliefs, and they just kind of like tacked it on. Why? Control. They wanted these people that were not part of their religion to buy into it. So even when you are brought up in we see there's a lot of inappropriate behaviors in Christianity and Catholicism. You're taught to listen to what your pastor says, or your, person that's in charge. You have to run all of your major life things by them. Like, it's just another element of control and fear. They make all the fear centered around you feeling like you're wrong and you can't trust yourself and you can't listen to your intuition and you just have to do what they tell you to do and what they tell you is correct. And if you don't do that, you're punished or you're ostracized or something bad, right? So people can have, that's a really, really common one that I see, is that people have like this religious trauma where they've been told their whole life that they will go to hell if they do this, that they're so afraid to step into it. Yet, I find it very hypocritical and very ironic that the people, the figures that religion has idealized throughout history were intuitive. Why in the Muslim religion do we listen to Muhammad, who essentially was able to intuitively channel an angel and receive a bunch of information from speaking to an angel? And that's okay. But if you do it yourself, it's incorrect. Why do we listen to Jesus, who is the Son of God, who is able to allegedly intuit or channel God and his messages, yet we cannot do the same thing? Why did they idolize the kings who were seen as given divine right from God, that they could literally channel God and God would speak through them, but you cannot do that? I just find it very interesting that most of the religions that have this control element, they idolize a figure that was connected to their intuition, that did some kind of psychic something or other. Right? Like even in Passover, the story of Passover in the Torah, God came to Moses and told him a message. What is that? A psychic. He connected to God. Through what? His intuition. How did he know? How did he hear God? Through his intuition. Right? Like we expect it to be like the sky parts and like fucking God comes down and you're like, Moses, this is what you must do. It's never that clear, right? Like it said, for the 10 Commandments story, like God appeared to Moses, but as a burning bush. How did he know that was God? His intuition. So I just find it very suspect that so much of religion talks about don't trust your intuition and all the things that could connect you to it, but listen to the people who were connected to their intuition and told you how it should be. Very sus. Anyways, that's my TED Talk. I mean, this whole podcast is a TED Talk, let's be honest. I have so much to say about that, but we're going to move on. So now we're moving on to your upbringing, your culture, your family upbringing, your more personal experiences with trusting your intuition. Now, a lot of these upbringing pieces can be filtered through the societal or the religious. That's why I wanted to talk about those two first, because that's really where the cultural piece is, right? You might not be like super religious family, but your mom believes in, some religious piece, some superstition, something, because she's still afraid that you will go to hell because of the conditioning. So we can have family members kind of tell us like, that stuff is evil. That stuff is evil. That stuff is bad. Don't listen to that stuff. They might have like stories or anecdotes where things happened badly, or they were scared, or they were interacting with like a demon or a spirit or things like that. And it's all tied into like this fear mongering, right? Like we're afraid to connect to our intuition because we're afraid that if we connect, who will be answering the call? Who's on the other line? Is it a demon? Is it an evil spirit? Is it something like that? But that's because we're conditioned to only focus on that. What if you don't connect to that? What if you connect to your intuition? What if you see your spirit guides, your higher self, your grandma, whatever it is, right? There's ways of knowing these things. What the energy is that you're connecting to. And if you trust your intuition will let you know. Your intuition will say, red flag, oop, this doesn't feel good. Like that energy is not for real. But the thing is, I will say, and this is like a whole other thing, the fear that you're going to connect to something evil is really just fear, because the amount of people that have connected to something like that are smaller. The probability is less likely that that will be your reality, because a lot of the spiritual realms and worlds rely on consent. So if you have this belief or this energy, this mantra in your mind, I don't want to connect to a spirit, I don't want to connect to a demon, I don't want to get possessed, blah, 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 you won't, because your energy is saying, no, 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 I'm not open for this. And a lot of people don't realize that it really truly works like that unless there's extreme circumstances, right? Like, there was a guy who came to the shop where I do readings out of, and he wanted to do like a house cleansing because he felt like he was like having interactions with a demon. He would go home and he would literally have like fog appearing in his bedroom, and he lived like in an apartment in a space with roommates, and he was like, there's like scratches on the walls, I could hear scratching in the window, there was like fog on top of my bed, I felt like someone was sitting on my bed, like I can't get it to go away, it's like worse and worse, and I'm so anxious and I'm so scared. Number one, he didn't trust himself, he didn't know his intuition. And so I connected him with someone who was doing the house, who could do the house cleansing for him. That practitioner came back and I'm like, so what happened? Like, what did this person really experience? And he goes, well, yes, all the things that he experienced were true, but he is using drugs and alcohol really heavily. And he needs to stop using them because that is why this energy is happening around him. Now, I'm not saying don't use drugs and alcohol because you're going to get possessed. What I'm saying is when your energy is under the influence of something, we can't consent. We, our guards, our walls are lowered, and our energy is vulnerable. And if you're in a pattern or cycle where you're addicted or you're turning to something to avoid the problems at hand, then bad energies love that, right? That's why it's like hard to tell, like if someone is like addicted, if it's actually like in a lot of religion, they'll say you have a demon. That could be a potential, right? Like your energy was just so negative and so low and so down and out and vulnerable and looking for something to help you to escape whatever it is that attracts that negative energy, right? So that's like these extreme cases, right? Not everyone has this. Not everyone goes through those things. And the amount of exorcism movies that they make, I believe, is just like propaganda for the church. But the amount of exorcisms that they have in history, if you really think about it logically, probably most of those people just had undiagnosed schizophrenia or Alzheimer's or multiple personality disorder. And right, one could argue that could still be connecting to demon or whatever. But think about it, like the stories, I'm into true crime and stuff. So the famous like exorcism stories, there's some like crazy shit that goes on in these people's houses, right? There is some intense energy that goes on in these things. And back in the day, they didn't have the DSM-5. They didn't have psychology departments in college and all that kind of stuff, right? So they were turning to their authority figures that they were conditioned to, which was the church. And the church then tells them, oh, this is something evil. This is a demon. This is how I'm going to help you get it out. And that's why some people, when they turn to God, they can break their addictions, right? Because they are putting their faith in a different energy. They're saying, I want this. My energy is putting consent towards healing. My energy is open for good things, for God. They say, let God in, let the love in, let the light in. You're actually opening up to that, and you're changing because you decided that you wanted it, right? They say you can't force someone to go to rehab. They have to want it for themselves. Otherwise it will not work. So now we're seeing how all this is connected. Great. Love that. I'm answering for you. The other kind of conditioning that we could have is logical conditioning. Our modern society loves science and math, loves logic. And we are conditioned from children to trust facts and figures and numbers as the end all be all. And we are in a society where women are demonized for being too emotional, and that we need to be thinking with our what is it, our left brain, our logic brain, that we should value logic and reason over everything. So that kind of conditioning also impacts our brain, right? Because we are now saying your brain is the most important part of your body. This is the leader, the center of your body, and you should defer to logic over everything. And a lot of spiritual stuff we cannot hold in our hand, we cannot see it with our eyes open. There's no logical proof for a lot of people. There is proof, just depends on how you look at it. The CIA released literally those classified documents, and I was reading them, and it's literally just shit that I teach in my psychic classes. Like, they literally are like, there is an ability to connect to information. One has to have a focus and intention on their mind to connect to this information. That's literally what we're doing. We're having an intention, we're going in, right? So, yeah, a lot of this stuff can be explained by logic and science and reason. That's why I like to open up with the part about how the pituitary gland and our brain and all that kind of stuff, because it helps people get on board, because we are so conditioned to be like, well, that's just made up. How can you prove that to me, right? And people are like, tell me something I don't know about myself if you're actually psychic. And it's like, yes, I do that every day. I challenge the beliefs that I was brought up with I challenge my brain every single day when I show up as a professional psychic or mentor, whatever. I challenge the belief that, like, how could I know that? Because I can only rely on logic and reasoning. Well, I knew what your dead dog's name was. I know exactly what your current dog looks like. I know what's going on with your relationship with your boyfriend. How? I didn't look it up. I didn't do research on you. I know because I opened up to all the information that's available in the universe and I connected to it. That's simple as that. And that is not logical. That is not, like, for people, it's not trackable. It's not analytics. And we're taught to value all of these things over everything. I personally believe that science, the study of science is, the practice of science is to understand the world, right? To study and figure out how the world works. What magic and spirituality do is the same thing, just in a different way, right? So we can connect to all of the information and knowledge that exists in the world when we are psychic. We just don't necessarily see it in this, like, scientific provable way. So an example for this, if you look at a lot of ancient cultures and their beliefs, they pretty much align with what science has caught up to and finally figured out or explained, right? So my favorite example is white sage. So people burn white sage, indigenous people, it's part of their culture and it's part of their sacred practice of smudging. But people burn, and there's a whole episode on that if you want to listen to that. It's like an earlier episode. I don't remember what number it is. It's about cultural appropriation. And the belief with spiritual belief with sage is that when you burn the sage, it clears out any energies and it makes your space neutral so that you can call in whatever energies that you want. Scientifically, when we burn sage, it is antimicrobial, antibacterial. It kills germs and mold and other things in our environment and in the air. Now, if we think about ancient people and what were the problems that they were facing, germs, right? Most of these deities or spiritual beliefs that ancient peoples have is that something negative was coming for you. And so you had to do this spiritual practice or this thing to get rid of it. So back in the day, there wasn't soap and vaccines and things like that. So if someone was getting sick, they needed to find a way to understand, to process, how do you get sick? Because they don't know what germs are. And so spiritually, they're like, there's a demon, there's a negative energy, there's a curse, there is something on you. And if you burn this sage, it will clear the energy that is around you. What does that do? It clears the mold and the bacteria out of the way so that people could maybe heal and maybe, miraculously the demon goes away. So yeah, it doesn't mean like, well, I would recommend not using white sage because it is a sacred plant if you're not indigenous. But it doesn't mean that one is more right than the other. It means that they came to the information in different ways and understand it slightly differently, but the same outcome, right? So that's how like a lot of our brain is conditioned to override and to give more authority to logic, right? Another piece that is really, really big, that is a little bit harder for everyone, but is actually the most impactful type of challenge or belief to break down so that your brain can get out of the way, is we're also taught in our society, it's along the same vein as trusting logic and reason, trusting the brain overall, is to disconnect from our body. So this is like a whole thing I could talk about, so I'm going to try and keep it brief. So much of our life and our modern society teaches us to disconnect from our body. Number one, we're taught to value our brain over our body, over our emotions, which work through our body's senses. So we already have that piece that we kind of covered, right? However, we might have trauma, right? We may have experienced something scary, something uncomfortable, something harmful. We might have any of those types of pieces. And so we don't have a practice of honoring emotions and holding space for emotions in our society. It's not seen as something that everyone does. It's like a luxury. It's a newer concept to go to therapy, even though like ancient cultures all had some kind of system for this and it was actually like seen as more important. It's part of the logic piece, right? It's part of the societal conditioning. It's all connected. But when we experience something traumatic and we don't have people around us to help us learn and process and hold other people accountable that hurt us, our brain is like, don't be in your body. You are carrying so much stress and pain and hurt and feelings that you don't have time or money or knowledge to process. So just don't be in your body. That's how a lot of people learn to survive in this world, is to disconnect from their body. I'm one of those people. My childhood was pretty traumatic and unsafe, and I experienced like sexual abuse and other types of emotional abuse. And so I had a lot of heavy pieces in my body. I had a negative connection with my body and belief around my body. And especially if you're a female-bodied person, right? We're brought up, men have this too, but to a lesser extent, but we're brought up learning that our body is like not good enough. It's too much this, it's too much that, it's this. And it others us. It disconnects us from our body. We see our body as something separate from us because we're so much in our brain throughout our whole day. We're like doing, typing, thinking, reading, consuming, talking, all these different pieces. And we're not taking time to be in our body, to work out, to sit outside, to move our body, to nourish our body. That becomes stuff that's like last minute, pushed to the wayside, right? We don't even have money for it. It's seen as a luxury to be able to connect to your body, which is by design. And over time, we just separate from that part of ourselves. We don't know how to process our emotions. So we just kind of leave them there because they're scary. They're we're afraid it's going to be too big if we feel them. We have a lot of pain in our body, right? Because how our medical system is set up, it's not preventative. It is only treating the symptoms once they arise, never looking holistically. What is the root, right? Like I grew up, I've always been a little bit overweight because I'm only 5'2". So I have to be like 120 pounds based off the BMI, which the BMI thing is bullshit anyways, but that's what they use when you're growing up. Every time I go to the doctor, they're always talking about how overweight I am. So now I feel shitty about my body. They're not telling me how to fix my body. They're like, just keep exercising. Like that's gonna fucking do anything. But what they really should ask is, wait a minute, so you're eating pretty healthy and you're exercising. Like I remember when I went in high school, they were like, you're overweight, you should exercise a couple times a week. And I was like, I'm in softball. Like, I have a sport after school that I do every single day. Like, I am exercising. They're like, oh, well, I guess just keep doing that. What they should have then asked is, if you're eating pretty healthy and you're exercising regularly, why is your body still retaining the weight? Emotional issues, right? It's a coping mechanism. If we don't want attention on our body puts on weight, which makes us quote unquote unattractive by societal standards so that we won't be noticed. It's a protection mechanism. Not for everyone, but for my case. Or like a hormonal imbalance, right? It could be a hormonal imbalance. It could be like I'm living in an environment that's stressful, so my body is disconnecting. When you go through a lot of trauma, along our spine, we have the vagus nerve, which is a nerve that helps us process our emotions. And if we experience too much trauma, it shuts off and we disconnect from that ability to process our emotions. And a lot of people don't know that, right? So then they never reconnect. So then they're just stuck in this soup that they're carrying in their body. So it's like, what about all of those questions, right? I'm sure that this medical professional like didn't get trained with all that stuff, because we're not seen as holistic. We're seen as a means to an end. Oh, you're having a lot of headaches. Take this headache medicine. Not, why are you having a lot of headaches? What's going on? Are you under a lot of stress? Are you drinking enough water? Like all these different things, looking at it holistically. So we get this, we're brought up in this societal norm that our body is just something that we just treat. We don't talk to it. We don't get to know it. We don't process with it. We don't move in it. We don't understand in it. We don't connect to it. We just go about our day and we see our body as something that sucks, that isn't the way that we want it to be, that can't do the things that we want to do, that is failing us because it's sick, as opposed to looking at the body as, wow, my body is telling me, hello, hey, raise the alarm. There's something going wrong here. And I want you to address that. And I'm going to keep bringing it up to you until you address that thing. And then, Western medicine is like, just take another pill for that. Just do a surgery for that. And not understanding, like, why do we keep having this? Like my dad, he constantly gets, you're like I can't remember the word for it now. The stones, the urinary tract stones, right? And they're like, oh, we'll do this to make it smaller. Oh, you need to do this to just pass it. Why are they not asking him, why do you keep getting these? All they do is look at his diet. Well, your diet seems to be fine, so I don't know why you keep getting these. Well, if it's not that, then there has to be some reason that my body keeps producing these things that are in imbalance to me. Female body people, we are not supposed to experience pain in our periods. Why do we? There is something imbalance in our body, and our body is letting us know that we need to address it, and we need to adjust and tend and change what we're doing. What does modern society tell us to do when we experience cramps and bloating and all these different symptoms from period? It's normal. Just take a pill for that. Alleviate the symptoms. Girl, I cannot. Again, I'm going on another tangent. But this is all to illustrate how pervasive the belief that we should disconnect from our body is. And then we also have that paired with not having an understanding or importance placed on processing our emotions, and those kind of like psychological, spiritual fields being really important, right? If you do yoga and you eat right, and you take time to go connect in nature, you're seen as like some weird hippie person, right? That's how like all Californians are labeled, because I'm from California. Oh, you do, it's like, okay, so you're shaming me for taking care of my body, for putting importance in my body, for wanting my body to feel and look good? Like crazy shenanigans, right? So, there's a dog hair on my lip. The only downside of wearing lip gloss all the time is my dog's hair just gets everywhere. I feel like it's still there. There it is. Okay, I think I got it. So yeah, the disconnection, why I said that is the most important thing and the most impactful thing is because, segueing into the next section, our intuition works through our body's main senses. The intuitive abilities. So number one, everyone is born with intuition. I'm just going to put that out there. There are certain gifts or psychic abilities that some people have and some people don't. I'm not going to be talking about those today. I'm more focusing on the intuition piece. Everybody has intuition. Everybody is born with the ability to access their intuition, to use it in some way, shape, or form. There are 6 different types of intuitive abilities that we can have, that we are born with. Some people have all of them. Some people have a few of them. Some people have a few that are stronger than others, and some that they barely or seldom use. It is okay. Everyone has their own unique mix of intuition. And that is something too that I always teach to my students and my clients. Your intuition is unique to you. It is a language that is unique to you. And you will experience it different from the next person. That's why I'm a big proponent on creating knowledge and sharing knowledge and meeting you where you're at. Because people online who are teaching you how to connect to your intuition and just telling you to do one thing, they are still upholding the colonial ideology of trusting someone outside of yourself and doing what they tell you to do. And that is what will work. And everyone's intuition is different. So you might see this person that's like, yeah, I do this. It's perfect. It works every single time. Let me tell you, this is how I found success. And then you're in there and you're like, I'm not experiencing it. That's not working for me. And they're like, just try harder, because they're not thinking about you as an individual and what you bring to the table and what you carry within you. So I do want to say that everyone's intuition is unique to them. There are some common things that many people experience. Like I experience full body chills when that means yes for me, for my intuition. A lot of people also experience that too. So there are some overlaps, right? But I always teach people your intuition is like a language. It's like learning a language that is unique to you. It's not just a book that you can pick up and have all the answers, because it requires you to connect with your body, connect with your power, your intention, your decision, all these pieces. And that is something that is very personal. It's not like a one size fits all. No. There are many practices that we can do to develop and things that we can all do to help, but ultimately you're going to experience it differently, and your intuition can change over time. I used to have certain signs or symbols when I was beginning that have developed into other things now. Like I never used to get the full body chills thing, and now I get that very often. So that's very important to kind of put that out there. So when you are connecting to your intuition, know that it's not a one size fits all. Know that you might have to experiment and to figure things out. And that's why when I teach my intuitive development, I prefer to teach it one-on-one with people, so I can completely tailor it to wherever you're at and whatever you're needing and whatever your block is, right? Because we might be like, okay, how do you step into your intuition? Let's talk about clairvoyance. The 6 different types of I put 5 fingers up. The 6 different types of intuitive abilities that we can have are called the clairs. And you might be like, okay, we're going to talk about clairvoyance. That's the most popular one that they put on TV. Every single person at the psychic shop where I would give readings talks about, I want a clairvoyant psychic, because how society has conditioned us to think that those are the only real psychics that exist. Boo, false. I recently watched the Gladiator 2 movie, and the rulers tradition back in the day would let God speak through them, and they would determine a yes or no. So they would put their hand with their thumb out like sideways, and then it would go up or down. So it's like, for me, I wish I had that so I could be like, boo, no, and put it face down. Anyways, so let's say you're like, okay, we're going to talk about clairvoyance. Like, this is what clairvoyance is. This is how you step into it. This is how you practice it. Like, student A might be like, cool, yeah, awesome, pick it up super easily. Student B might be like, I keep trying, but I met with resistance from one of these things that we previously mentioned. I'm scared. I'm scared to try. I'm scared to open up. And then you might be like, great, thanks for coming to my class. Continue on, right? that is where it's important, because it's like, if you know what the block is, if you know what the challenge is, and you have a teacher or someone or a resource that can help guide you towards moving through that block or figuring out that block, then you're golden, right? So let's talk about the different types of intuitive abilities. Now, this is why I say like healing the connection to the body is important, and knowing and healing your emotional state is important, because lots of people struggle with, how do I know if it's intuition or how do I know if it's fear? Now, if you are connecting to your body and allowing these different six senses that your intuition has, and can speak to you through your body, if you're aware of what all you have going on inside of your body on a day-to-day basis, what you're carrying with you, then you'll be able to pick up on, oh, if this is intuition or if this is fear. And honestly, like, I've had so many clients that come to me for holistic therapy, for energy therapy that I offer, and their abilities start to come online as we are moving through. It's like a side effect that happens. It's because you're uncovering and removing all of the stuff that people have placed on you, all of the beliefs, all of the patterns, all of the stuck feelings. And so you're creating this beautiful flow of energy in your body that allows you to reach outward and connect with what is out there in the world. And you're also creating a sense of trust with yourself, with your power, with your body. So now you start trusting the things that you're feeling, and you're not just writing them off as like, oh, it was just like the electricity, like acting weird. It's not a psychic experience. Surprise, it's both. Spirit is very efficient. So the types of intuitive abilities. So first, I want to say, for intuition, your intuition is the first answer that you hear. It's the initial response. If you hear voices in your head, it is the neutral one. It is usually quiet. It is never negative. It is never demeaning or judging you. Sometimes as you develop a relationship with your spirit guides, they might be sassy, but they're never going to be like, you're stupid, you shouldn't have done that. That's not going to happen. They're never going to be like, you should do this right now, otherwise you're going to lose out on this. Like, it's not going to be like fear-based. It'll be like, yes, you should do that thing. No, that person isn't right for you. Like, it's really neutral. And because our brain and our conditioning, we're taught to value our brain, we easily skip past that first initial response, that first initial feeling or sensation or whatever, and we feed in and we buy into the fear base of, okay, well, it's like, should I move apartments? Yes. And then your brain is like, okay, well, but what about my money? What about this? What about that? What about blah, blah, blah? And it's like, it distracts you from the answer because you're trying to figure it out logically and trying to like worry about and have the fear of like all the things that could happen and all the contingencies, versus if you just listen to your intuition and they say yes and you're like, okay, cool, I'm going to do it. They said yes. The thing that you're worried about will probably solve itself, right? They say 80% of our things that we worry about never even happen. So, you know, it's just a way to make your life easier. Your intuition is your internal compass. It guides you to what is best for you. It should be something that you trust. And it's really all of the other things that you experience externally in your life that teach you to distrust, or you get afraid that you couldn't trust yourself and you have to distrust. So, what are the intuitive abilities? How do they work through our body? Through our body's main senses. So you can see things, hear things, feel things, smell, taste, and then the sixth one is know things. So they're called clairs. It's just Latin. So clairvoyance means clear seeing. Clair audience, clear hearing. Clair cognizance, clear knowing. Clair alience, clear smelling. Clairgustance, clear tasting, clear sentience, clear feeling. That's really what they all are. Even in the Latin name, clear, we have to be a clear, open channel for these things to come in. So a common thing that people don't realize with intuition is, in order to connect to your intuition, to connect to the clairvoyance, to connect to the clairaudience, we have to prepare our body. That's why I like to give the context in the beginning. We are on the third dimension. Our body cannot move away from the third dimension into the fourth dimension. Our energy can. So we have to prepare our energy, right? This is all energy that we are playing in, emotions, energy. So if you're struggling, you're like, yeah, I know clairvoyance. I know I have that. But every time I try and connect with my spirit guides, that doesn't happen. Okay, well, that's because did you prepare your body and your energy to communicate with higher level beings, with higher energy? So it's really important to have a really good grounding. I teach my students this routine where you ground, amplify, and protect your energy. This is a great system to have so that it basically makes your intuition go from like old school TV to like 4K Ultra HD, right? It does make a huge difference. So if that's where you're kind of at and you're like, yeah, I know all this stuff that you're talking about, consider preparing your body and your energy first before you're connecting to stuff that is like really intense energetically. So we have to like prepare to open up, prepare for what we're connecting to, for what we're seeking. Number one, getting our energy ready. The grounding helps you ground your body, your vessel that cannot leave the third dimension in the third dimension. It also gives you a conduit, a connection for releasing energy back into the earth that is too much that you might connect to or you might be holding on to in your body. The amplifying is to raise your vibration so that you can reach up to the fourth, fifth, and beyond dimensions. And then the protecting is so that you don't get the unwanted, you set your intention and your boundary for your consent for what you want to connect to and what you don't want to connect to. So that solves most of the problems that people have. The other common misconception is because we are very logic brained and focused, we are concerned with, I have a goal, I will reach that goal, I will meet that goal. I have an intention, I will make it happen. And we use our brain to guide us. This is the way that logically it makes sense. So this is what I'm looking for. That's not how intuition thrives. If we want to truly be psychic and truly be intuitive and connect to intuitive information, we have to learn to clear our vessel, to clear our mind, to get an open channel. Basically, you're not seeking an answer. You are asking a question and letting the answer, the energy float to you so that you can experience it inside of your body, however your intuition works through the different clairs, and that you're telling your brain, get out of the way, do not interpret, do not block out, do not make sense of this information. I am just a clear channel, a vessel for information to come in, and then I experience that information and then I make sense of it. Because a lot of intuitive information doesn't make sense in the moment because as humans, we can only know so much and be connected to so much that exists, that we tend to like try and make sense of it in our brain. And we're like, that doesn't make sense to us. And it's like, yeah, because you haven't experienced it yet. It'll make sense once you experience it. Or like, yeah, because you're human, so you're not getting the full picture. You're only getting the part that is important for you to know, and that's it. So those are two really common mistakes or misconceptions that people make with their intuition. They just think like it's not real or it's not strong or they don't have it. Number one, everyone has it. They think that like their spirit guides are not ready for them or they're not there. No, you have to ask for a lot of these things. You have to put the intention out there for what you want. And then the other two is like not preparing your energy. So it's like, oh, it doesn't work. It's not that strong. No, it's just you didn't prepare. And then, oh, I'm not really getting anything. Well, is your brain getting in the way? Like, are you shutting down? There's a whole, like, we'll have to do another episode on those pieces. But let's quickly go over the intuitive abilities and how to connect to them or how to grow them. But first, I'm going to take a sip because I've been talking for an hour without a drink of water. Except I'm drinking coffee and not water. Okay, so let's start with clairvoyance, clear seeing. Not everybody has clairvoyance. Some people are not born with the ability to see in their mind's eye, to visualize in their mind's eye. Your mind's eye is, you can focus when you close your eyes on the space in between your eyes and your forehead. That's where your third eye is. But it's just the internal imagination that you have. So if you're like, how do I know if I have that ability? If I ask you to visualize a sandwich, can you visualize a sandwich in your mind? Can you pull up an image? Can you focus on it? Some people need to take some time to really focus longer and longer and longer to really get that in-depth image. Some people can kind of like get like a knowing or a sense like, yeah, I can envision a sandwich. I can envision, now I'm envisioning like 70 sandwiches, right? Can you envision what your mom looks like? Can you envision a beach, right? So if you can visualize things in your head, that's what your mind's eye is. That means that you probably could have the ability to have clairvoyance, more likely than not. A lot of creative people automatically use clairvoyance, right? How do you get that idea for the painting you want to do, or the movie you want to write, or the scene that you saw right now, right? So there's all of that. Clairvoyance, how you can work with clairvoyance, how it shows up in your body. Clairvoyance is a few different ways. We can see things, it's more rare, but we can see things with our eyes open. So there are some people that can see like a ghost or a figure standing, but like literally as if they were a human standing there. So some people can see that. You can work your way up to that, and some people are just naturally gifted in that way. For most people, it happens in the mind's eye. If I close my eyes, then I can see in the room where the spirit is, or where the deity or being is that I'm connecting to more easily. Why this works this way is just we have less distractions. Like distractions meaning when your eyes are open, you're seeing all of this color, information, light, all this stuff. When you close your eyes, you just focus on the information that's coming from the other places that aren't, in the physical realm. And so that's how most people see the clairvoyance. They'll see either images, photos, colors, shapes, energies, or they'll see like sort of like videos, like moving scenes or memories. A lot of the time for clairvoyance, for intuitive abilities, you can get like a whole bunch of like a whole scene, but in like 1 second flash. Because they're giving you a lot of information. It's just boom, beamed into you all at once. That's pretty much most of them. We can see just anything that you see, right? So if you want to build your clairvoyant abilities, you can practice visualizing things like visualize like a purple triangle or like a rainbow colored butterfly. You can also, I love to listen to like nature meditation music and then try and visualize what the nature space looks like based on the sounds that are being made from it. Trying to think, I have like a whole ebook on my website that's free if you want to download it, if you prefer having this information written down for you. Trying to visualize the things. Oh, meditation. Meditation is a great practice for honing your visual abilities, right? Going inward, seeing what's in your internal landscape, talking to your spirit guides through visualization, visualizing yourself doing the thing that you want to do, the success that you want, all these different things. Those are all different ways to kind of like hone your clairvoyant abilities. But a lot of people, like I said, will have to shut their eyes because it's just a little bit harder to see things with all the other things that you're already processing and seeing. The next one that's most common is going to be clairaudience. So that's clear hearing. So this can be, again, similar to clairvoyance, hearing something literally like as if there's a human standing 10 feet from you in the room and saying, the most common ones that people hear is like their name, they hear clapping, like sounds, whooshes, different things like that. But most of the time when you hear with clairaudience, you're hearing it inside your brain, like in your mind. Now, not everyone has an internal dialogue, but so you may or may not hear things in your brain. But when we're thinking of your internal dialogue, it's like, if I ask you a question, are you answering the question out loud to yourself or in your head? Are you hearing a response in the form of your own voice or someone else's voice that you know? if I'm asking you to, what was the example that I just had in my brain? If you're reading, do you hear yourself reading the words inside of your head? Right? So that's different. That's like how like clairaudience works. So the voices in your head, it's important to get to know who they are. Is this voice my mom? Is this voice my spirit guide? Is this voice myself? Right? And that's why I was saying that intuition is usually the first voice that you hear. It's going to have a neutral demeanor or tone. It's never going to be blaming or shaming or limiting. And for the most part, it's more even keel and quiet. Unless you really are connected with your spirit guides, and then you can kind of hear them being like, come on, dude, like, put it together. So ways that you can practice this is to go to a really busy place that has multiple sounds, close your eyes, and practice isolating the sounds. Practice only hearing the dog barking, and then only hearing the cars driving, and then only hearing the person talking, right? Preferably in a place where you haven't gone before, so that you're not like used to all the sounds. What this does is this teaches you how to isolate out sounds, so that when you're connecting intuitively, you can hear better the other frequencies, the other words that people are telling you from wherever they're telling you. Other common symptoms or signs of clairaudience is ringing in the ears. There's a lot of different debate around ringing in the ears. Some people say it's like evil if it's on the left or the right, and like all these different things. I personally don't buy into them. I feel that ringing in the ears is either you're not like your energy is not in the correct environment to hear clearly what they're trying to tell you, or they want to get your attention or have you focus on something, or whatever is going on is really important in that moment. So yeah, you can have ringing in the ears. Another common clairaudience symptom is, especially if you love music, getting song lyrics sent to you as messages, or like quotes from movies or things like that. So song lyrics, it's like if you wake up with a song stuck in your head, take note of it. What is the exact lyric that is being repeated? What is the feeling or the thought that you had when you became consciously aware of it? This is not going to be for like a song that you heard earlier in the day and now you're just like, it's stuck in your head. It's like the song randomly popped into my head. Sometimes spirit will do, like I've seen where people, they're like, I don't even have this song saved in my phone and it just started playing. That can be like a clairaudient message for you, right? So you can practice by honing your skills, honing your hearing. I'm going to talk about other ways to practice your intuition it's not contingent on any one clair, but it's just ways to practice and make space for it. You can talk to your spirit guides. You can create a dialogue. Like I love to talk to them while I'm in the car, because I'm having something, my body is still focusing on something, so I don't get too like caught in my logic in my head. Like my brain is like, here, focus on, not crashing your car. So then like that part of my brain can go over there, and then I can listen to and feel and sense the stuff. So talk to them, right? Like automatic writing is a great way to practice this. So automatic writing is like when you sit down with an intention, whether I recommend writing it on a piece of paper when you're first starting. You might have to do it a couple of times. Everyone is different, right? It's your own unique language and your own unique blocks that you're working through. It took me like 3 times till I got something that made sense. You address, who are you addressing? Ask your question to your spirit guides or whatever it is, and then you write the word nothing over and over until you hear something, and then you write whatever you hear down. You might have to close your eyes when you first start. Of course, your writing is going to be messy, but it's okay. It's just learning. As you continue on, maybe you could do it like on your computer. The first few times I got like no word, then one word, and then like a sentence or two. Or like phrases. And then like the next times it was like paragraphs on paragraphs. So I just started doing it on my computer because it was like too fast for me to keep up with my hands. So you can practice automatic writing, and you can Google automatic writing too if you want a little bit more description on that. The next one is going to be clairsentience, clear feeling. So these are for people who you feel the energy of a space when you walk into it. You feel the vibe of a person. Like if you walk in, you can tell that your coworker is like upset. and you haven't even like looked at them or talked to them. You just feel the vibe. These are for people who you can, when you connect, you can feel the sadness of the person that passed away. You can get an intuitive sense, you know, like I said, like a feeling like around a space or a person or a situation. You maybe feel a lot of people's energies when you're out in public, and you can get really drained by them easily, but you feel in terms of vibes. Like that's kind of like you're not hearing or seeing something, but you're getting a strong feeling or you're getting an emotion. Now this one is often confused with being an empath. And there's some people out there who they teach that there's a seventh Claire called Claire empathy. I don't believe in that. I think it's disempowering, and I think it's BS. Being an empath is a survival mechanism that people have to develop who grow up in traumatic households. I grew up with an alcoholic parent. I didn't know what version of the person I was going to get. So I had to learn how to project my energy into the space before I entered the room so I could sense if it was safe or not. That is a survival mechanism that is very, very hard to turn off for a lot of people. And so I don't think that it's something that's like a God-given gift. And it's really hard to maintain that. I recommend for people who are empaths and who feel a lot and feel very drained, having a really good grounding and protecting practice. The difference between being an empath and having clairsentience is you can turn off your clairsentience. Any of your psychic and intuitive abilities, you can choose when you want to connect and when you don't want to connect. That's why you're struggling to connect right now, right? If I'm in a reading with someone and I'm feeling the pain or the fear that they're feeling based off of the situation that we're covering, when I'm done with that reading, I don't feel the fear anymore. I don't feel the pain anymore. If I'm an empath and I'm walking around in the room and I sense an energy, I might not be able to stop sensing that energy. That's why I think the grounding and protection, releasing the energy and protecting from it so you don't welcome it into your body is important for being an empath. Now, for being clairsentient, we can experience feelings in our body as emotions. We can experience them as energy moving. Like we can literally feel like sensations in our body, like tingling, chills, hot, cold. We can literally feel like things are moving within us. We can experience like actual pain in our body. Like if you're connecting to someone who died, you might feel how they felt when they died. There's a rare psychic ability called a physical medium. And sorry, I just got a text message. There's a rare physical, it's called physical medium, where you actually like viscerally feel it. I had a client that was a physical medium, and like their co-worker had like a knee injury and they didn't know, and they came to work and they all of a sudden their knee started hurting and they were like in excruciating pain, and they were like, dude, what is happening? And then their coworker was like, I have this knee injury, and they were like, oh my god, I'm just feeling your pain as if I'm experiencing it in real time. So that's a little bit more rare. But yeah, clairsentient people can feel sensations in their body. They can tell what other people are feeling. They can sense the energy of people, places, things, even objects, right? That's like psychometry. So unfortunately and fortunately for people who have clairsentience, dealing with your emotions is how we grow this ability. If we are carrying a bunch of stuff on the day-to-day basis, it makes it harder for us to be a clear channel to sense the information, number one. But also, if we're feeling or sensing someone else's emotions or some other type of, energy or emotion that's in the world around us that we need to know, it is important to know, like, is that mine or is that someone else's? Like, is that fear that I'm feeling from the person next to me, or is it my own body, right? So it's important to know what you have going on and what you're carrying so that you can understand what the emotions are that you're picking up on in a psychic or intuitive way, and also to know how to release them, right? So that you don't keep them in your body and take them on as your own, as a lot of empaths do. So that is a great way. The other way is just to test it out to see what feelings or vibes that you get and trust it, right? Your intuition is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it is. The more you teach your brain to listen to it and to get out of the way, the more intuitive and stronger psychic experiences you will have, right? It's all about priming our brain. Again, I'll talk about some other ones that at the end that will work for everyone, for whatever clair you have. Claircognizance, also known as like the gut feeling or women's intuition or things like that. Claircognizance is a knowing. So it's a little bit harder to like test it out. But the ones that I'm going to share at the end that work for everything, you can use for this. But claircognizance, it's sort of like if you didn't get it from all the other ways, like you didn't hear it, you didn't feel it, you didn't see it, you didn't smell it, you didn't taste it, it's claircognizance. Claircognizance is knowing something that you just have no way of knowing. This can be like just a strong feeling that like everything will be okay. Like I used to lose stuff all the time when I was a kid. I left my Game Boy on one of the shelves at the grocery store, and then we made it home, and then my mom was like, dude, where's your Game Boy? And I'm like, shoot, I left it. And she was like, you better call and hope that nobody stole it. And she was like freaking out because it's expensive and all that stuff. And I was like cool as a cucumber, and she was like, what the hell, you're not taking this seriously? And I was like, I know that it's there. I know that I'm going to get it back. It is not lost to me. I just had this strong sense, this overwhelming sense of it'll be fine. And I was right. I got it back. I also had my iPod stolen from me in middle school. And my inner child is like, fuck you to whoever did that. That's why I'm laughing. And that one, my mom was like, you better look for it the same way you look for your Game Boy. And I was like, I'm not going to look for it because I know it's going to be lost to me forever. I never found it. I didn't even know who stole it from me. I ended up buying another one with babysitting money. But so these are like just feelings that we have, a knowing, a sense. Like you know how it's going to turn out. You know what to expect. You know to be calm or to be worried. You know something that you shouldn't know, but you don't know how. You're like, I didn't get an image, didn't get a word, I just know. That's the gut feeling. This one, in working with it, we need to practice like trusting ourselves and connecting to that gut feeling that we all have within our body. Human design is a great way to learn how to connect to that because not everyone's gut works the same way. Not everyone has the gut feeling in the same way. And so you can practice that way. You can also do the human pendulum, which if you've ever used a pendulum, you know how you hold the crystal and you say, show me my yes, show me my no, show me my inconclusive. You can do the same thing with your body. So you don't need a crystal for that. You stand in anatomical position. That means hands at your sides, palms facing forward. Don't have stuff in your hand or don't be standing like on a hill or something. Then you ask your body, show me my yes. And your body will lean in a direction. So my body leans forward. And then you say, show me my no. My body leans backwards. Yours could be leaning to the left or to the right. And then show me my inconclusive. And I kind of like stand still and I don't really move in any particular direction. So that won't change once you know what your yes, no, and inconclusive are. So then you can ask yourself for yes or no questions to help to trust, to build the trust between your brain and your body, to connect and open up. And also, again, make sure you're addressing. Are you asking your body what will be best for you? If you should buy this couch or not buy this couch? Or are you asking your spirit guides if you should go on this date or plan this event, right? So that is a great way to connect to the claircognizance, the knowing of things. Also, looking back at your history and seeing patterns about how it showed up can be really helpful. The next two are the least common that I've seen. So clairalience and clairgustance, clear smelling and clear tasting. They're just less common because there's not so many things that like the intuition will require like a smell or a taste for, but they are still really powerful. So clairalience, the clear smelling, I've seen it really more commonly with ancestors. Like if you're working with ancestors or trying to connect to past loved ones, you might smell grandma's perfume, the cigarettes that your grandpa smoked, or the alcohol or the food that your culture, cultural foods were cooked at your home growing up or something like that. So those are the more common like smells that you'll have. And again, this can be like smelling it in the environment, like it smells like spaghetti, but there's no one cooking spaghetti here. I will say if you live in an apartment, you could be smelling your neighbor's food. But it could also just be like in your like a sort of like, I'm reminded of the scent of this. Because scent and taste are strongly tied to memory. So a way that you can kind of like jumpstart that if you get like a smell is to continue to ask for these smells, to continue to breathe in your environment when you're needing to get more information. And there is in human design, some people have smell as their strongest sense, and they will get a lot of intuitive information. So like if you don't like the smell of something or a person or a place or whatever, trusting that scent that is more of an intuitive knowing than like, oh, it's trash, I don't like how it smells. Not like that, where it's just like, there's something weird about how they smell to me. It's like maybe they're not supposed to be in your life, or maybe they're not the best person for you, right? So trusting those types of pieces, and asking if there are, asking for your guides or your ancestors to send you more scents, more smells. Same thing with the clairgustance, with the tasting. Like that saying like, oh, they left a bad taste in my mouth. So a lot of people, you can like taste something like a food that you didn't eat earlier in the day, or, isn't around in the room. Or you can just, really common ones are like tasting like bitterness, or tasting, like metallic, or like a blood type like an iron texture in the mouth. That can also be like intuitive knowing or inkling, like if they leave a bitter taste in your mouth, or the feeling of a bitter taste, right? Like if you think about how you feel when you eat your favorite food, that person made you feel like that, that's probably like a good intuitive feeling, right? Versus if you interact with someone and like they remind you of like something bitter or gross, or a food that you don't like, then like maybe don't interact with them again, using your intuition to guide you in what would be the best decision. But yeah, same thing. It's like tasting stuff that you didn't eat like 2 hours ago that's stuck on your tongue. A very similar as well. It's going to be mostly cultural foods or alcohols or smokable things. Usually shows up more with ancestors. Like if you're building an ancestor altar and you're like, what offering should I leave you? And you taste, like the food of your culture in your mouth, and you're like, cool, gonna make that for you. And some people also have taste as their strongest sense in human design. So that's also like could be another intuitive instinctual knowing for you. So trusting those receptor pieces that you get and the feelings that the receptor pieces give you for the intuitive information. Now, what are practices that can help you just grow your intuition overall, whether you have 3 out of the 5 out of the 6, or all 6, or 1, or whatever it is? You have at least one. Most people have more than one, but it's just some are stronger than others. So my favorite thing to do is to tap in for things that are low risk to you, right? It can be hard to trust our intuition from the get if we don't have like a track record, and then we're trying to use it on something that's like a really big deal in our life. And so our brain might confuse us and make us second guess ourselves. So start small. We're not going 0 to 60. We're starting with something that's low risk. What I mean by low risk is if I fuck it up, if I don't get it correct, nothing will change. So my favorite low risk intuitive activity to tell to people and clients is using TV or movies. So like if you're watching a movie that you've never seen, pause in the beginning or before you even start watching it. See if you can use your intuition to predict the plot, to predict, like, let's say you're watching a horror movie, who will die and in what order, right? Maybe you watch like the first 5 minutes or something and then you try and predict. You can do the same thing with TV shows, reality TV shows. Who's going to win on RuPaul's Drag Race tonight? Who's going to be eliminated first? Who's going to be the winner at the very end, right? Like using your intuition to predict the different things. And that way, if you're wrong, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter because the movie is still going to be the movie. The show is still going to be the show. It's also really easy to use this for collective stuff, predicting what will happen collectively in your country, in your community, whatever. If you're wrong, it doesn't change the outcome. It doesn't affect your life by being wrong because the thing in the collective is still going to happen, right? So those are great ways to like tap in and ask questions. And when you're asking for the collective, like it's okay because you're connecting to all that there is. You're not like trying to influence one person's energy or connect to one person's energy. You're seeing like, what is the energy of everything that we're all a part of? And you're part of that collective. So you have access to that. Using the human pendulum can be a great way to connect to your intuition. Working with nature or witchy stuff like herbs and stuff can help amplify your intention and your power and your intuitive abilities, but also being in nature can be really healing and just help us heal and be in our body and slow down and listen to those things. Meditating or having some kind of practice where you regularly are connecting to the body, like yoga is a active form of meditation. A lot of people like to like do it when they're driving or running or walking so that they're having something with their body to focus on so that they don't just get like feeling like they're put on the spot. Asking more for help and for guidance, asking for signs, asking for feedback, asking for connection, asking for the, volume to be turned up on your intuition if you need to. Creating more time to connect, right? More time intentionally to practice, because that's really what it is. The biggest thing for people is just needing to practice. When you learn a language, what is the biggest thing? The quickest way to learn a new language is to immerse yourself in that culture. In like, go to Spain if you want to learn Spanish, right? Go to Mexico if you want to learn Spanish, right? It's going to be a lot quicker to learn it there than in America if you're speaking English all the time with other American people, right? So creating the time to practice and to connect, using tarot or oracle cards, like having something physical for your body to focus your intention and your brain on and to interpret from there is going to be a little bit easier in the beginning than trying to like get stuff from out of thin air. It seems for a lot of people, we're not relying on the rules. We're not relying on what is the meaning of this card. No. We are doing it intuitively. We're not looking at the definitions. We are challenging ourselves to see what your intuition picks up on. What in the imagery stands out to you? What is the feeling that you're getting? What is the thing you're hearing? What is the vibe that you're intuiting? And then writing that down. And then if you really want to check what the actual meaning of it is, that's fine. With tarot, the question matters. So please make sure you are asking a question first before you pull a card. I have had clients that are like, I don't really understand what all this information is that I'm getting. Well, what did you ask? I don't know. I just pulled cards. Don't do that. Like, if you're addressing and asking a question through divination, we need to have a question. Even if it's like, what do I most need to know right now? That's fine. So you can do tarot as like a daily thing. Like, what's the energy of the day going to be? Write down your notes after you finish your day. See if it was correct. See if that's exactly what you experienced and what you felt. Or like, what do I most need to focus on today? Or what challenge will I face today? When you are done living that day, go back and check your work. See if you were correct. That, I think, is a really powerful practice because when learning our intuitive language, it can be hard to know, what does this random shape or object that I got? What is this vague message that I got? Like, how do I make sense of that? And like I said, we might not know just because we're humans and we don't know all of the things like how spirit does. So at the end of the day, when you check your work and you go back, it's easier with the hindsight to make the connections, to be like, oh, that's why I got like this. So like for me, an example, when I'm leaving for the day, a lot of the time spirit is like, grab that item, bring that thing with you. And I am in the practice of, I don't question it. I just trust it. Right. So I'm like, sure, whatever, I'll bring it. Then like I'm out at the shop where I do readings and stuff. And like, someone's like, oh, do you have, blah, 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 by the way. And I'm like, oh, I brought one today. I didn't know why I needed to bring one, but Spirit told me to bring one. Here you go. Right? So it can be for like very simple things that we don't even know why or who or how, but it's like now that it's happened, now I understand and I get why you told me this. But if I were to sit there and be like, well, why do you want me to do this? And why do you want me to bring this? And blah, like I would have missed the opportunity and I would have just got caught in the logic piece, right? I also like to give the example of like these people that I knew that I don't talk about their names because they're kind of jerks and they like blocked me because they believed an abuser over me. And they have this podcast and I'm sorry, I'm just getting annoyed at the situation at hand. They were trying to like, their goal together as like witches and tarot readers was to get booked out for large scale like conventions and events, and they asked their spirit guides like, what do we need to do that, to manifest that? And their spirit guides said, get a booth at the swap meet. And they were like, oh no, like not the swap meet, like I want to be at some cool like makeup convention or something, right? And their spirit guides were like, get a booth at the swap meet. And they were like, okay, I'm going to trust you. I don't know all why this is happening, but I'm going to trust the process. The woman that was in the booth next to them put on a convention. She was the organizer for it. And they started talking to her, and then they found out, and then they were able to do readings at her convention, right? It is not for us to know everything. That is a big thing with intuition. The logic brain wants to understand, wants to know, wants to make sense of it. Once you let that piece go, intuition becomes a lot simpler. I'm not here to be the mastermind behind everything, to know before I go. I am here to trust that what I'm being guided to is the best for me, and everything will make sense as it's uncovered in the divine timing. In the time that it needs to be there, it will be there. And all I need to do, all my job is to connect, to ask, to listen, to do the work that I'm being pulled towards, away from, whatever it is. And that is how my path unfolds before me, right? Like many people, when they're living an intuitive life, they're not questioning, they're not needing to make all these crazy decisions. They are learning to be in flow with the universe, in flow with the energy in the clear vessel. They're being in tune with this flow of energy. And it's actually really freeing, because then you don't have to expend so much of your energy figuring it out, planning it out, logicking it out. And you can just enjoy being in the process and knowing that you're doing what is best for you, you know, like you're listening to the guidance and you're taking heed of it and you're trying to honor that guidance. So more than likely it will come out positive for you. And also remembering in our journey, especially if you're doing intuition and healing at the same time in spiritual journey, what is best for you is not always what is fun to experience in the moment, but at the end, you see. That's why I'm saying, like, you'll see at the end, you're like, oh, this sucks. Like, I got let go of for my job. Like, I wanted to make a bunch of money. Like, what the hell, spirit? And it's like, well, maybe that door is open and clear for you now. So this other opportunity can come in, or so that you stop being afraid to do your business idea that you wanted to do, which is exactly what happened to me. And I just trusted the process. I was literally getting laid off because of COVID. In the Zoom meeting, I literally heard my spirit guide say, now go do your business 100%. I said, okay, I'm not going to try and look for a job. I'm going to do my business 100%. That was 2020. That's like 2019, I started my business. 2020, I was like, I'm just doing it, because my plan was to, have my job, make my business profitable, then quit. Spirit was like, no, honey. That is not your path. And you know what? If I would have continued doing those jobs, the 9-to-5 jobs, I probably wouldn't have been here now. I wouldn't have stepped further into my purpose and my path and created all this amazing change by helping all these people and creating knowledge like this and free resources for people. So it's not for you to know. You are not God. You are a conduit of God. Or whatever you believe in. If you don't believe in God, that's cool. Just insert whatever you believe, whatever higher power you believe in. So yeah. I I'm now questioning if I've already made a episode about this, but it's always good to revisit topics. And for me, I had taken 2 years off of my podcast. So like I've learned through 2 years of knowledge. So this is the free ebook. If you're interested, it's linked in my bio. It's on my website. You just go and you download it. You're good to go. It has all the clairs written out in different ways that you can connect to them. Keep listening to this podcast whenever you need that refresher or reminder or permission to trust your intuition and to do the scary thing, because our intuition is going to guide us slowly, sustainably to where we need to be, to the healing or whatever it is. So all we need to do is trust it and open up to it. And for every person's journey, that is different. So if you want help beyond the ebook, I do the one-on-one intuitive development. I do therapy. Psychic readings can be really impactful for like asking those questions. How do I trust my intuition? How do I step into it? What are the blocks that I'm carrying, right? So just continue to work on your holistic practice, on your spiritual practice. And if you are wanting to work with me, or you need some help, or whatever the, curiosity or inkling is, I'm always here for you. I am fully employed in my business as a small business owner. So like supporting, small businesses like me helps us, the work that I'm doing, I believe is very important for the world and very tied into the revolution that needs to happen right now, right? The more we trust, the less we give away our power, the more we stand in our power, and we create a system that works for all of us collectively. So it's all tied together. It starts on these micro personal choices that ripple into bigger choices, right? Like I started by listening to the intuition that my guides told me about, going full force into this. And here I am creating content and information and knowledge for other people to do the same exact thing, right? We don't know how the process will take us all the time. You're lucky if you do. So yeah, feel free to, or human design too, can really teach us a lot about our body and our intuition. So those are all great pieces to go from and to be in. And I don't know, I'm just like I'm really excited for all of the intuition stuff that's going to spark from your life and in your path. And again, please leave us a review on whatever platform you're listening on, comment, follow us on social media, on Instagram, the Empowered Intuitive. You can follow me on social media, Love Sakratoff, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. I think I'm on Blue Sky. I still have a Twitter, but like I don't have the app in my phone. I just didn't delete it. So don't follow me there. But Blue Sky and Threads and all that stuff. Not that I'm super active on there. And yeah, so leave a review, share with other people you love and and comment and follow us and do all the things to help support us so that I can continue to make money from, this, so I can continue to, I'm not making money right now, but so I can continue to create this free resource and offer it for you. You have to have certain parameters met in order to get ads on a podcast. So I'm just being transparent. Like before I've made like $20 from ads. So I'm like rebuilding that, but it'd be cool to make like hundreds of dollars from ads, and you can just skip the ad. Like then you get free resources. Not really good at goodbyes. I've said that many times before, so I just keep saying yeah until I end it. So thank you all. I look forward to hearing from you, speaking with you, empowering you, helping you love yourself and trust yourself. And next week and for many weeks to come, feel free if you want additional content. I have like 50 other episodes that you can parse through if you're new to this and you're just finding us. I also have a new podcast called Source Seers with my business partner, Ty Lynn. So there's even more content now. We have like 4 or 5 episodes out. So enjoy that. And by the time that you hear this episode, we'll have 6, 7 episodes out. So I hope you have a good rest of your day and you have cool intuitive experiences. Thank you for listening to your intuition and listening to the Empowered Intuitive podcast. I would absolutely love it if you could leave a review on Spotify, Google, or Apple Podcasts. Subscribe or follow the pod wherever you stream, and legit just tell all your spiritual baddie friends and fam about us. You can follow the Empowered Intuitive Pod on IG at the Empowered Intuitive Pod. For updates and fun memes, follow our host Love on IG and TikTok at Love Sakratoff. That's LOVESACHARTOFF. Or head to their website to subscribe to their newsletter, book a session, or attend an upcoming event with them at lovesakratoff.com. And remember, trust your intuition.